Hi everyone, this is Brittany O'Day. We are going to be presenting as the Group 7 presentation. We're going to be discussing Loretta and Bart's case scenario. Just a quick overview, Loretta and Bart are coming for couples therapy. Loretta has said she's been unhappy for the past few years and something needs to change. Bart said that he's willing to give this a shot. Bart and Loretta attended the first counseling session together. The second counseling session, Bart did not show. He was working late. And Loretta disclosed that she was having an affair with someone else. You also find out that your sister is friends with Bart on a social media website. So we're going to be discussing the ethical dilemmas regarding that. So first and foremost, we thought it was important to discuss the individual counseling versus marriage counseling. Marriage counseling focuses on the family system as a whole, while also focusing on the uniqueness of each individual. When we're talking about this case scenario, obviously we have two individuals that have come to you, have different issues that we needed to be addressing. And when we have our first session, it's important to discuss the ethical issues, the confidentiality, and so forth. Limitations in confidentiality versus individual counseling is because you have two different individuals that are going to counseling and talking about it. So obviously we can't control that, and we're going to discuss that more. Attendance is not mandatory, but is highly encouraged. Obviously, when we're talking about going to marriage counseling, the more that they're attending together, hopefully will be. Therapist does not make decisions for the couple. The decision should be for the couple to decide. So again, we thought it was important to discuss how they were informed in the first session and how that looked. So when we're discussing the ethical issues, what they were notified. Therapists should inform couple of goals of counseling. Therapists should inform couples they cannot guarantee that the counseling will produce positive results. So with Bart saying that he's going to give it his best shot, obviously that doesn't guarantee that good shot of attending the first session will give him positive results. Therapists should avoid dual relationships, and this is going to be discussion that we need to be discussing with the Instagram and obviously the individual counseling if Loretta's the only one attending versus them coming as a couple. And a therapist is not a secret keeper for clients and maintains professional relationship with both clients. When they had the first session and they discussed all these rights, she was discussing that as a group, or as a couple, and not just an individual thing. So she needs to maintain that professional relationship with both couples. Therapist does not abandon couples or withhold treatment for discriminatory reasons. We're going to be discussing this more in depth. As a counselor, we need to be aware of our own values and our own belief system. And this issue is she's having an affair with someone else. She disclosed that information to you. Do you have any values or issues with that?
So I'm Wendy Bresky, and there are several cultural and diversity considerations to discuss when talking about Loretta and Bart. Religion. What are their views on marriage and divorce? What are their individual views on an affair, and how has their religious background or lack of religious background shaped that? Your own bias as a therapist. So what are your values in regards to monogamy, marriage, divorce, affairs? Oftentimes bias is unrecognized by the therapist, but can be portrayed through body language. Finances. It states that Bart is working overtime. Is money a contribution to their marital problems? Also with the cultural change in economic contribution. So previously women stayed at home, men were often the breadwinners of the home. How has that economic shift and cultural change affected their relationship? One of the leading causes of divorce in the US is money. Education. So the level of education holding different levels of importance with Loretta and Bart. Divorce rates decrease as individuals move from groups with little education to groups with more education. So how has education influenced their marriage and Loretta's affair? Race and ethnicity. So how does their cultural background affect their perspectives on the problem, on monogamy, on marriage, on divorce? How does cultural background of the therapist reflect in the therapist's work with the clients? The next one is age. So what age were Loretta and Bart when they were married? Studies show that women who were married before the age of 18 have twice the risk of divorce as women who marry after the age of 25. Another question, cultural consideration, is how old is Loretta's boyfriend? How old is Bart? Modern society has also changed a lot. So how has the evolution of society pertained to their particular situation? Even just the definition of family. In 1971, the family was defined as basically their roles within the family, like the role of husband and wife, mother and father, son and daughter, brother, sister, and how they maintain a common culture. 19 years later, in 1990, the family was more loosely defined and less differentiated by their roles.
My name is Matthew Wool, and I'm going to be talking about dual relationship concerns. So it's disclosed that Bart is an Instagram friend of the therapist's sister. So does this pose the dilemma of dual relationship? The first step that I would take would be to make sure that I consult with peers, counseling peers, and or my supervisor, or both, and then consult the NASW Code of Ethics as well, which reads that social workers should not engage in dual or multiple relationships with current or former clients in which there is a risk of exploitation or potential harm to the client. So the questions to ask myself would be, does this constitute a dual relationship? In my mind, it does not. This relationship that Bart has is a social media relationship with my sister. Am I on Instagram? If so, is my account private? It should be. And could Bart be harmed or exploited by this relationship? I don't see a situation where that would happen, but it would definitely be worth continuing to monitor. The NASW Code of Ethics kind of speaks volumes about dual relationships, and the social workers should avoid communication with clients using technology, social networking sites, email, text messages, private telephone numbers, for personal or non-work related purposes. Social workers should be aware that posting personal information on professional websites or other medias may cause boundary confusion, inappropriate dual relationships, or harm to clients. And personal affiliations may increase the likelihood that clients may discover the social worker's presence on websites, social media, and other forms of technology. And basically, you want to keep all that stuff private and stay out of groups that are based on race, ethnicity, language, sexual orientation, and other diversity related groups. Once again, social workers, and definitely in this case, should avoid accepting requests from or engaging in personal relationships. So if Bart were to friend request you, or Loretta were, you would definitely decline, but they shouldn't even be given the option, that given that your account should be private. I'm going to also address the privacy concerns. The informed consent process, which would take place throughout, but definitely before treatment starts as well. The limits of confidentiality would have been discussed prior to treatment, and the differences between families and individuals is with individuals, it's very clear cut unless there's a release in place or there is harm, imminent harm. You have to maintain confidentiality, but with couples and families, there are different strategies that should be discussed beforehand. Gottlieb in '96 outlined 4 possible strategies, and one would be to allow no confidentiality between the couples so that everything is out in the open. 2 would be to allow complete confidentiality. Whatever is said in private stays in private. A 3rd strategy would be to allow temporary confidentiality, but in this case, ask Loretta to disclose the affair to Bart or to leave treatment. And then a 4th strategy, again, would be allow certain things to be kept confidential. And this definitely muddies the water, and I'm going to send it over to Ashley, and she is going to talk a little bit more about our privacy concerns.
Hi, I'm Ashley Powell, and I'll be continuing with the privacy concerns. So Loretta discusses an affair as well as hopelessness regarding the marriage. So here are some questions to consider as her therapist. Do I tell Bart what has been going on? Do I demand that Loretta tell Bart, or will I not treat them? Do I refer them out to another therapist? Am I aware of my own biases and values? Are there cultural implications to consider? Or what does the NASW Code of Ethics say, as well as latest research say? Let's look at the NASW Code of Ethics, the Ethical Standard 1.07F. It says, when social workers provide counseling services to families, couples, or groups, social workers should seek agreement among the parties involved concerning each individual's right to confidentiality and obligation to preserve the confidentiality of information shared by others. This agreement should include consideration of whether confidential information may be exchanged in person or electronically among clients or with others outside of formal counseling sessions. Social workers should inform participants in family, couples, or group counseling that social workers cannot guarantee that all participants will honor such agreements. So in this case, we're saying that keeping the affair a secret could undermine the initial goals of therapy that were set by the couple in collaboration with the therapist. So again, as we mentioned, the biggest question we're asking here is, was there a confidentiality agreement that took place, and was there a collaborative goal setting that took place? So when consulting the literature and the NASW Code of Ethics, the NASW Code of Ethics says that unless a client gave valid consent for the policy that no information is confidential, otherwise a social worker cannot break confidentiality. I would suggest seeing Loretta on an individual basis and assisting her in clarifying what she wants for her future, but do not align with either party. Research in this area is unclear and does not offer a clear decision, so I would consult other therapists for their advice. If Loretta sees no hope for their marriage and is only there to please Bart, then I would suggest terminating couples therapy altogether.
Hi, my name is Alaka Tangamo, and I will be covering the therapeutic relationship. The therapeutic relationship is an equal relationship between therapists and the clients, which is an egalitarian relationship. It reduces the knowledge discrepancy between the participants by valuing the client's perspective and insights. It also generates mutual goals by the therapist and the client working together. And it also entails increasing the therapist's emotional self-disclosure and empathetic communication. That can also that can be done by reducing the role distance and the power differential between the therapist and clients, and it also aids in developing a trusting therapeutic relationship. Informed consent and confidentiality, I'm going to touch base on it again, even though it was mentioned earlier in the slides. It's important to ensure that clients are clearly informed about what is expected of them and what they can expect from therapy. Clients should be able to gain access to knowledge that the clinician possesses. For example, risk and benefits of the psychotherapy or of the therapeutic relationship, the right to refuse any method, and the ability to seek second opinion, as well as having a right to terminate at any time. Moreover, what is discussed in therapy will remain confidential unless there is a written permission given by signing a release of information. And as social worker or therapist, it is our duty to break confidentiality. For example, whenever a client discloses in the therapy session that they're going to harm themselves or others. Talks about possible theories and approaches that we have explored in our case. The first one is a humanistic person-centered approach that we had discussed utilizing in this case as a non-directive form of counseling with Loretta and Barb, as it emphasizes a non-judgmental stance. The second one is emotionally focused therapy, or EFT, to reach unconditional positive regard. And that can be reached by working with one partner at a time, the partner, to gain primary emotions. It also assists in reprocessing the emotional experience of partners, and it also reconstructs the interaction patterns to reframe Loretta and Bart's relationship. The third one is family systems theory. We've discussed and explored that as it can be utilized in this case as a therapeutic approach to decrease conflicts between Loretta and Bart. And it can also be utilized to deepen their emotional attachments, to improve their communication and problem-solving skills, to generate self-esteem and hope, to teach Bart and Loretta on how to communicate more effectively and openly, and to lastly assess, identify, and strengthen their coping skills. Thank you for listening, and here is our references.